Bill Henshaw again, your friendly local constitutional kook out here in California. And this subject matter deals with the upcoming election, quote unquote, uh, and the importance of this election. It's a massive importance here that Trump gets reelected, and he should anyway. But the big deal is if that happens, now, with any luck, he'll be making two more appointments to the Supreme Court to replace Justices Thomas and Alito when they retire. Uh, and we want replacement Republicans in there, younger ones. And once that happens, now we're going to be in control of the U.S. Supreme Court for the next 12 to 15 years by at least 6-3. And if we get Sotomayor's seat or Elena Kagan, 7-2 or 8-1, even better. And we get more of the government outside of Washington, D.C., back to the states, and better yet, the counties where we really need to have them. Much more efficient, much less expensive, easier to control. How is that for a triple trifecta of truth? And you can learn all about that. Send me an email, uwinnincourt@gmail.com, and we can go from there. But that really is how important. And think about it, by the way, if they yank Biden from the ticket, that raises some serious constitutional issues, or it would if we had in the elections. You're going to learn more about that in an upcoming video. And get someone like Gavin Newsom in there from Sackler Tomato. And now if something happens and either Thomas or Alito can't survive for another 4 years, or if they die in office, now we go down to 5-4, and if you get both seats, 4-5. That's terrible numbers, and we cannot afford to have that happen. With a little luck, though, even if Biden gets in, if the Republicans control the Senate, and they're going to need 51 in there because the damn vice president has a tie-breaking vote, but they can maybe prevent him from 4 years from making any appointments. It'll be controversial, but the right thing to do. But that's why we want to keep the place in business here with the U.S. Supreme Court, with a solid conservative majority, and get people in there, and I'll teach you how to, if in fact we get there. And it's not a very long journey. You're going to learn that too. Send me an email, uwinnincourt@gmail.com. We get there with the right issues and the right status. That makes things very simple. And in fact, what happens is, and you'll learn why this is true, anything that happens to you in the trial court or wherever it is that's a total nullity, we go right, almost virtually straight to the U.S. Supreme Court from the trial court. And yes, you can do that. And yes, these current conservative justices know it. So we get right there, we get things taken care of quickly. And if they do it on the record, only one case like that takes care of all the BS from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon. And that's been the focus of my work for decades now. And I may actually live to see a lot of this. This is an astounding window of opportunity we have on the Supreme Court. And it's about time. And that's another thing we want, by the way, to get rid of is Title IX, damn election code. What does the federal government have to do with elections in sovereign independent states? Video for another day, but think about that one. Absolutely zero. The only place they may have some control is my former hometown of Washington, D.C. Doesn't work that way. And all we get in the schools these days is the BS woke stuff and the transgender rights and abrosexual rights, quote unquote, all civil rights which don't exist and never did. Abrosexual. You wake up on Monday, you're a girl, you wake up Tuesday, you're a guy. After that, who the hell knows? That's a civil right. That's about what it's worth. And they're teaching all this in elementary school, crying out loud. The 3 R's are almost out the back door here. And the good news for the New York bankers is, how great are these kids in school going to be on juries in another 10 or 15 years? They're going to know a hell of a lot less than the Gen Xers did, for crying out loud, and they don't know much. And to be sure, my generation, the baby boomers, didn't know a hell of a lot. It was better education in those days. But right outside of Washington, D.C., 5 miles, I didn't learn a thing about what I'm teaching in my video. Nothing. Wow. That if I had done that, my life would have been, changed that much sooner. I've been doing this business now in my 60th year, but it didn't happen that way. And that's what they want, total control of the education system so people don't even know they have the rights as jurors to rule on the facts and the law. And a big highlight here, people, think about this one. They say there's a right to trial by jury. Kiss my fucking ass, there's a right to jury. All they have is qualified jurors. It's the same thing with qualified electors. And those, as in Iowa, United States citizens who reside in Iowa. Not only is that not true, they reside in the District of Columbia. And as you'll learn from getting my materials, send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. What all of them really are just solely foreign state subordinate corporate dead entities. Now, if you're a dead entity, among other things, how the hell can you even be trusted to rule on the facts as a juror, let alone the law? That doesn't work. But that's not the trial by jury we signed on to in 1787. And that's the big deal. Because those people do have their intelligence. And Bouvier's Law Dictionary, by the way, a quickie, 1857, the then officially recognized definitions of the words and phrases by Congress at the time: citizen, one who has the power to vote for all offices and uh, who is qualified to accept all offices in the gift of the people. Competence. Where the hell has that gone? That's the last thing we see across the board anywhere today. Competence. Thank goodness some of these judges on the U.S. Supreme Court today seem to have a fair amount of it. But it's a rare avis. You come out of school, you don't know a damn thing. And I'm the leader of the pack, by the way. I was so stupid at the age of 19. What did I do? Volunteer into the U.S. Marine Corps at the height of the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. How stupid is that? So my mom and dad take me over to Fort Holabird in Baltimore on the way to Parris Island. I never made it. The sergeant looked up at me and said, "If you lose your glasses, how will you know who to shoot?" I have a total service record in the Marine Corps, the shortest ever, 15 minutes. And no cell phones in those days, so I had to wait until mom and dad got home. They had to come back and pick me up. But that was quite an experience that I learned from. And it is what it is. And what was I going to say about that? I got another thing to add about this particular story. Um, oh, and by the way, the thing I'm going to add was, and he said, "How will you know who to shoot?" Well, I know the right answer now, which I didn't then. I would have said no problem. Give me an M16, point me back to Washington D.C., the White House, landslide, Lyndon Johnson. I'll take care of it. And for those of you that don't know, Kennedy was assassinated on a Friday, and I lived through all of the events of that weekend. And the first thing this bastard does on Monday morning, his first full day in office, is sign an executive order reversing Kennedy's order, taking us out of Vietnam and putting us back into it. And you're going to learn a lot more about the history of U.S. involvement in wars since at least the Spanish-American War. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com, and we'll talk more about that too. Everything has been made up fictional stuff, and you're going to learn all about that and why we can't trust this de facto national socialist government, and why we want our local government back, particularly on the county level and with sovereign independent states. And now you can't be forced into the military, which they're trying to do right now to pass a law to make it mandatory, for all males to register for the draft. Well, wait a minute. Isn't there a civil rights concern here? You're only taking men and not women? Now, the whole thing is screwed up, and you'll learn more about that. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com, and we can go from there. And it just never stops with these people, but we have the ability, the power, to make it happen because, we're in a principal and agent relationship with these veterans. This is not guardian and ward, otherwise known prior to the 14th Amendment as master and slave. That's exactly what they did. They think we're all slaves. We have no rights. The de facto national socialist government is bound to respect. So that said, remember to send me an email for more information. youwinnincourt@gmail.com. Subscribe, like the videos, tell your friends, get the word out. Thank you.